do a reminder. Oh, thank you, Janet. And Janet is going to be on this call and all the calls moving forward as our official note taker, which is awesome. So thank you, Janet, for being here. Let's do names, pronouns, and one thing that's keeping you hopeful during this winter. So anyone that would like to start, please do. And I'll put the prompts in the chat.
I can start. My name is Nyla Biliu, and my pronouns are she, her, and they. And what keeps me hopeful is being with friends and family.
Beautiful.
I'll go. I'm Emily Figdor. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and my girlfriend's keeping me hopeful.
Beautiful. I'm Sarah, she, hers, and sunrises are keeping me hopeful.
My name is Carrie Dowdy, she, her, hers, and I just recently figured out how to make Ted Lasso biscuits for anybody who likes the show, and I put a bunch in the freezer for when the new season premieres, which I don't know when it is yet. So if any of you guys are fans and you're going to be excited about that, let me know, and I'll get you some biscuits.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie.
We love Carrie's biscuits. She's an excellent baker. I'm Barb Stoddard. She, her, hers. What's keeping me hopeful is just that incredible snow that we had and getting out and walking in the woods in the snow.
Yeah, that was good.
I'll go. I'm Betsy Baskimeshi, and what keeps me hopeful are my children.
I'll go. I'm Melissa Burke, she, her, hers. What's keeping me hopeful is how excited my 5-year-old is about winter.
That's great.
I'll go. My name is Manar Eltahir. My pronouns are she, her, and something that's keeping me hopeful is the start of Ramadan in March.
Matthew or Yusuf? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go. Matthew and she, his. What's keeping me hopeful is been stolen by all kinds of other people, so I'll come up with something else. I will look. I guess I'll be hopeful for some biscuits when Ted Lasso starts. How's that?
That's great.
Hi, my name is Yusuf. What keeps me going to the gym and exercising? Thank you.
Thanks, Yusuf. And speaking of which, that's why I have a very red face. I came right from the gym tonight. Well, thank you all for being here. I think we may have a couple of folks join us, and especially Sylvia will be joining us. But the agenda is in the chat, and we're going to skip the first item while we wait for Sylvia, but wanted to go to the second item of business, which is kind of the committee makeup. And so I think we all know, and also I just want to acknowledge that Julianne Opperman is here she's a board member, is here as an attendee, but we moved her over to participant just because it was weird to have her as the only attendee over there. So welcome, Julie. Thank you for being here. And so, as we all know, we had to move Mickey off this committee because the council recommended that we only have 4 board members per committee. And we need to fill her spot. And so I wanted to bring that to this committee to see how we want to do that. So I've been in touch with council, and the process for doing that is this group can come up with an alternative plan about how we fill that spot. So we can't fill it with another board member, but we can fill it with a community member, a teacher, an ed tech, and we have had repeated a parent, a guardian, anybody, right? So we can, as a committee, decide what that needs to be. And what we will do is we will take our recommendation and then write and ask the board to create a new resolution that will then get voted on next Tuesday at the board meeting. Once that resolution is voted on, then the appointment committee will take whatever our recommendation is and fill it. So it's a bit of a bureaucratic process to like get through, but we want to make sure that we are staying on track. Yeah, Emily, what are your questions?
I think the process would be that we would amend the current resolution, because otherwise we would have conflicting resolutions.
Yes. Yes.
And then I guess I'll just ask, there's been, I think there's been some feedback. I don't know if other members of the committee have gotten it on the composition of this committee. And I wonder if it might be an opportunity to not just add one more community member or staff member, but to add several more people. I think I'm receptive to the feedback we've gotten, so I'd be interested in that.
Yes, and I would love to just give a little bit more context on that, because that was going to be part of what I wanted to share as well. And then Betsy, I see your hand, and we'll move to you. So, I've heard from a lot of community members that it feels important to have more teacher voice on the committee, that it feels important to have more ed tech voices on the committee, and it also the other kind of like point that I've heard repeatedly is just it makes sense to have more community members or people that are not employed by the district on the committee. So those are the pieces of feedback that I have heard. So I'd love to hear Betsy's comment, and then kind of if there are other points that people have heard or thinking about, I'd like to make some time to hear those. Go ahead, Betsy.
Thank you. So no, I heard the same, because I think I'm on that email loop that, that's coming in with some of those points. Mm-hmm. And I think to Emily's about, not looking to just add one, but maybe adding more, because maybe I'm thinking of it wrong, but maybe not having an even number might be good, so that we don't have like 12. But we have an even number in case there is a tie, or like we can find other ways to kind of, so, and then the other thing is it possible to go back to applications? Did we get a lot of initial applications that we can go back and find parents or other people in there that were willing?
Yeah, so we do have a good amount of people that were not accepted. So we had over 50 applications to begin with. So I think that is a possibility to look back at that list. And I'm not 100% sure that whatever categories we decide on will be able to be filled from that list, but I would be hopeful that they would be. Emily, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I guess my only question is whether it will take a little bit of time for the appointments committee to meet. And I wonder if we, for a week, reopen the application process, because my thinking and I don't feel strongly, but just I'm wondering if more people are clued in to the process now, and that more people might be interested. I don't think I don't think it would be unfair to the people who applied initially. It's just seeing whether there's additional interest. We certainly have enough applicants to fill, an additional, 4 slots or, 5 slots or 3 slots, whatever we consider. And the last thing is I do wonder if we want someone from our base unit as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good thinking, Emily. Alyssa and then Yusuf.
Thanks, Sarah. I was just going to say that I think the context of this search has changed pretty significantly since we began and people were chosen for the search committee. So I imagine, like, given Javier's resignation, that there may actually be considerably more people who are feeling very invested in understanding and following more closely what's happening. That might not be the case, but I think it's possible that that would be true for people. So I think it makes a lot of sense to me that we would query people again to see who would be interested in participating given that. And I also just wondered if you could provide a little context around whether there were like initial categories that you were trying to fill in terms of representation when this group was put together, because it'd just be helpful to know what that context was to think about in terms of moving forward.
Yes, we did have categories. I'm not going to be able to pull them up off the top of my head. Emily, do you have them off the top of your head?
No, but I can look for the resolution
that would be awesome.
As people speak, and then I can put it into the chat. It'd probably just take me a couple of minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, so she'll get that. Yusuf and then Nyla.
Thank you. I was just thinking about to not increase the number because it's in the middle of the process now. And also it will be, our focus is going to be more in trap than we focus now from here going forward and fill out that position. If we go back to the list of the candidates, it wasn't easy. We spent some time to be like avoid bias and all of this. So it's gonna take another process of going back and looking for how will we do that. It's gonna be another conversation. So since we already have a process and we are in the middle of it, I my opinion is just to fill out that position and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusuf. Nyla and Sylvia, good to see your face again. You'll be up after Nyla and then Carrie.
Sorry for the music in the background, but I have similar sentiments to Yusuf, because I think one, if there's asked on accountability about how the group was set up, I feel like that is a bit different than like us having to pause and focus on trying to find new people to implement into the search committee. And I also feel like there were so many important sessions that we had that that gave people agency. I just don't feel like it's representative to push people in like mid-process, because then they weren't there to make decisions beforehand. And they should have had, if folks are going to be a part of this search, they should have had opportunity to make decisions beforehand, like along, or like have had the capacity to also be a part of the decision-making, that process that we went through in the beginning, especially the bias training, especially the processes around some of those things. And maybe, I don't know if folks are willing to gather those resources, in a different way and give it to those folks, that's fine. But I think there needs to be accountability on like how people were selected. I mean, I don't even remember what that process was or who was involved, but I think it's something to, maybe put in forth for like future situations like this, and how we can be more equitable and more inclusive and understand the dynamics of our power structures, and incorporating people that aren't so tied to the administration or so tied to the leadership structure. And I totally understand those sentiments, but I just don't feel like it's the right time within the process, and they missed out on so much that it would take a lot, even from their own agency, to make decisions in this process. But yeah.
Thank you, Nyla. Sylvia?
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you again. Now I'm back in Nashville, so can't wait to give you a quick update on that. The only thing I would add here is, and I don't obviously know the process you went through to select your committee. In our first meeting, we talked about the role of the board versus the role of the committee, and we want to keep coming back to that when we meet, so we have that clarity. But typically, in the coming sessions, we will begin to flesh out the selection process itself. And typically in an Alma search, particularly a superintendent search, we allow people to nominate themselves to be a part of an interview panel in the finalist round. And that's something that we will decide as a search committee, how many interview panels we want, what groups we want represented in those panels. We've done anywhere from 5 panels to 7 or 8 panels made up of teacher panel, a student panel, a school leader panel, a community partner and parent panel. And there is what we would propose is a nomination process. And then we do a lottery to select those panel members. We also would typically allow people to submit questions, anybody to submit questions to ask finalist candidates. All of those interview panels would go through the Alma anti-bias training, and then the Alma team would work with each panel to filter all the questions that have been submitted from the community and others, to then decide what questions they're going to ask, and then they'd be trained in how to do their specific interview with finalists. So I'm putting that out there to say that there will be opportunities for more involvement later on. The interview panels would be submitting their feedback on the finalist interviews to the committee and board to review. Alma would synthesize that feedback for you, and we would give you that information for you all to wrestle with in your final recommendation to the board. So just another thing to consider as you think about the role of the board, the role of the committee, and the additional opportunities that people will have to engage in this process.
Thank you, Sylvia. I think that's really helpful context. Carrie and then Matthew.
Well, thank you. So Sylvia, you kind of went over one of the things that I was actually wanting to bring up. And it also goes back, Betsy, you jogged my mind on this one too. So I have had people ask for an odd number, right? As opposed to an even number, indicating if there's a vote. But I thought clarity around, right, what is the charge of this committee? Ultimately, is this also the default interview team? Is it not? Is this committee ultimately deciding who the next superintendent will be? I'm just throwing these things out. Is it not? My understanding is that this committee is advisory and that ultimately the school board makes the decision. But things around that, I feel like there's some confusion, right? In terms of, and those are just questions, not me indicating whether I think we should expand the committee or not. Just, I think clarity would help a lot. I think, Sylvia, where'd you go on the screen, Sylvia? There you are. What you just also mentioned in terms of, right, opening up different pathways for people, different groups to be involved in interviews. And I actually recently, and this has nothing to do with the question, I just want to put in a plug, on the Alma webpage, Sylvia, I recently read, I can't remember where, but where with finalists, you had teams of students interviewing finalists. And I thought, wow, that sounds incredible. So anyway, I just get, I guess I'm asking for like clarity as well for those who want to join the committee. Not that it will stop them or not, but just so that they're clear on what the charge of the committee is.
Sylvia, is there anything you wanted to respond to in what Carrie just said before we go to Matthew?
When we go through tonight's agenda, we'll be coming back to refresh everybody on the board, the role of the board and the role of the advisory committee. And again, my understanding and what we talked about is this committee is sort of shepherding the process through, but they're ultimately providing a recommendation to the board, and the board will make the final decision. The feedback that we get can certainly be considered by this committee and considered by the board as well. Every interview panel will submit feedback on the finalist candidates using the rubric against the competencies of the job. And there will be, typically there are some sessions that are live so that anybody in the community can also submit feedback. So you will get a lot of feedback from a variety of people that you will be able to consider as you make your recommendation to the board. Obviously, we are going to facilitate your decision-making process and ultimately help you to make that recommendation to the board. And then hopefully we'll work with the board as well to facilitate their decision-making process. So at the finalist stage, there could be, if an interview panel is anywhere from 6 to 10 or 12 people, you could have 50 or more people who actually are serving as an interview panel, giving you feedback plus feedback that you would get from any community member. So I think, as you all make this decision of whether or not to add somebody, I would just take that in mind that we will have additional opportunities for people to engage. I don't think I don't know if I have a strong feeling on the odd number or even number, given that this group is making a recommendation, not a vote. So I think there's a lot to be considered, not only your feedback, but also the feedback from the finalist interview panels.
Thanks, Sylvia. Matthew?
Sorry, I went to hit the mute button and a news link dropped down at the same time, and I went to a news story. I tend to agree with Yusuf and Nylat and sort of appreciate what Sylvia has shared about past processes. My concern about opening this up again is the school board is going to sort of, I saw the email, it questions the legitimacy of how this group was constructed. If you open that back up, it begins to accept that maybe this wasn't a legitimate process that got us to where we are. So that's a concern on my part, just looking back to how this started. You felt you had, I recall somebody making a comment in one of the early meetings that it was one of the better processes you've held as far as creating an ad hoc committee. And I would say to the board, trust your gut. If you felt that you went through a strong, legitimate process to begin with, stick with it. And Sylvia has offered a lot of different options to engage, for members of the public to engage in this process through a somewhat secondary deliberative process of creating, getting 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people to become part of an interview panel, which seems to be a nice thing. Then secondly, the duration that it would take the board to add more people to this group and then to onboard them. I looked at the calendar while others were chatting, and we've got 3 more meetings in the next 28, 29 days. It just seems like there's going to be a lot of catch up to do in a process where personally I feel we're late in what we where we are and what we should be doing. Alma's going to guide us through that in a methodical way and get us to the finish line when we want to, but I do feel like it's a rushed process already, and this is only going to make it a more rushed process. And then lastly, I'm ambivalent about odd versus even numbers because this is an advisory panel. If we were to advise 7 to 6 on a candidate, the board could vote for the candidate that the minority recommended. If it went to the boards, 6-6, they're still going to vote in a way that they see fit based on the information that's presented to them. So I don't really see, needing to have an odd number to be all that important. But I understand that if we want to replace Mickey with a member of the public, then I would suggest you do that from the pool of candidates that had previously engaged and reached out to be part of this committee.
Thank you, Matthew. Alyssa?
I wonder if a compromise could be to seek to fill the empty position specifically with someone who is an ed tech. Just in thinking about who's represented here, I feel like there's one person who represents teachers, which is Carrie, right? It's someone from PAE. Betsy's here as a staff member, and I'm here as a member of the leadership team. And so just in terms of thinking about who, different employees are within PPS, ed techs feel noticeably missing from this group. So I would be, happy to see that happen if we could.
Beautiful. Any other thoughts? So what I'm hearing is there's kind of three different options on the table, which is we don't fill the seat at all. We just leave it with the current group. We fill the Mickey's empty spot with someone else in a different category and do not add additional people. Or we add additional people in additional categories. So I'd love to do a fist of 5 on each of these to see kind of like where we are on them. Do people remember the fist of 5 rules? I can get them back up really quickly. If only I didn't have a million tabs open. There we go. Okay, I'm going to drop this in the link here. Or drop it in the chat. So we're going to go through all 3 of those choices. We're going to do a fist of 5 on all 3 of those and just see where we're at. So our first fist of 5 is going to be not filling the seat at all. So if we can do a fist of 5 on that, whenever you're ready. So not filling the seat at all. So remember, fist means no, you don't support that, or 5 means yes, I'm on board. Okay.
Wait, I'm sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, that's okay.
You're saying ask the question, not filling the seat?
Yes, it's not filling the seat. So a no.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yes. I'm on board.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like
Sarah, this would mean no, I think we should fill the seat.
Correct. Correct. Sorry. Usually this is easier than this. So fist of 5. Okay. 4 fingers. Okay. So if you are doing a 0, it means that you disagree and you think we should fill the seat. A 5 means that just leave it like it is. We're not filling it. Okay. That's helpful.
Wait. So the fist is we are going to fill the vacant.
Yes.
Okay. Oh yes, we are going.
Okay. Beautiful. Whew, sorry. Okay, let's try the second one. I think it will be easier. So fist of 5, we're gonna fill the 1 role, the 1 seat. So we're gonna fill 1 seat, Mickey's absence. Fist of 5, where are we? Okay. So it looks like there's some support there. And then finally, the other option is to fill multiple seats. Okay. So what I'm seeing from this is it seems like that there is general support for filling the seat that was Mickey's and not adding additional roles. Is there anybody that is in strong opposition to that would like to voice that? Okay, then I'm going to suggest that we move forward with filling Mickey's seat. At the same time, in my next update that we'll post on the website, really making clear the additional community opportunities for people to be participating in this process. Additionally, I think that there is a kind of understanding in the community that this committee is making the final decision, which is not true. So really wanting to explain that to the community as well. So are there other categories besides ed techs that people would like to consider for this spot?
I do think that it would be great to consider some either other units or people from the community. We don't really have a lot of community members. I recognize I'm a community member, but I also do have a lot of connection to the district. So not that I'm opposed to having an ed tech, but I wouldn't want people in base to feel left out specifically. And there certainly are probably other people in the community that might be interested.
I see Nylet saying immigrant parent, if possible. Multilingual family. Yeah, Minar.
I think it would be great to have some community members or like more community members, or at least an additional teacher, because I feel like more teachers' voices should be heard.
Okay, thank you, Minar.
I do like, I get the point of not opening up. I do like Nyla's suggestion of an immigrant parent. We do have a number of multilingual parents that do speak English very well, and they do offer a very different perspective. But I do also strongly feel that Alyssa has a great point with our ed techs. Because I do feel like, I think Carrie does represent teachers in general. So I think there is a good, strong teacher voice here. But I think ed techs, they've been struggling a lot in our district. Even getting pay. And so I do feel strongly that an ed tech is important to be on here. I didn't even, So what I'm saying is it's two good points. It's going to be hard.
Anybody else have thoughts? Yeah, Matthew.
Yeah, just quickly, I think there are a lot of good groups of people that are not represented here that should be represented here, that could be represented here. So it's a tough decision for the school board members to make, but I think there's a strong argument for the ed techs. They are the lower end of the pay scale. They are dealing with challenges that others may not, and certainly I think it helps for them to have a voice and be heard with respect to their daily routines and needs and struggles. So I would support the ed techs, but understand that every other choice is a reasonable one as well.
Thank you, Matthew. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Carrie.
Well, this is what I'm thinking. I'm wondering if because there are immigrant parents who are ed techs, right? So, but that would be then going out and recruiting or asking as opposed to people applying. But I was just thinking, many of us represent more than one impacts group, right? So anyway, that was just something I was thinking.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. What do folks think about that? Yeah, Nyla?
I really like that sentiment because that's also what I was going to say along with the email is that we're not just, like what folks see us as or like what our representative positions are. We hold many hats or many identities or in different communities. So I like the idea of approaching somebody because of, their special experience and their like capacity or like just I guess how long they've been in the district and how much they know about it. So I think it would be good to approach somebody if we have somebody that represents those two demographics that we're hoping to look for, and then just seeing like how, if they have that long-term history. Yeah, I mean, I guess criteria's can be a long list, but I like that idea of like approaching somebody.
And just to clarify, like, is it the multilingual experience that we're looking for, or the immigration status? Like, what is?
The multilingual parent that is an ed tech. If we can identify a person that has that demographic.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah, Alyssa.
Just to add that while obviously with edtechs, most people are probably going to be very fluent in English, that we certainly have the capacity to provide interpretation in order to be part of this committee. And so that's definitely something that we could look to as we consider applicants.
Beautiful. Is there anyone that is opposed to going outside of the current pool to look for this specific set of demographics? Okay, seeing none. Oh, Matthew?
I'm not opposed. I would just suggest you look at the current pool of candidates before going searching for somebody.
Yeah, I think that is smart. Alyssa?
I wonder if we might want to consider age group at the same time in terms of representation. I'm just aware, like, we have a student. I do work that is all at the lower end of the spectrum, and I wonder about representation from the middle school age group. And we also have somebody from Portland Adult Ed, so maybe that would balance that out as well, to just be able to add that specific perspective.
Yeah. I think that also just tracks with a lot of the feedback that I've heard from the community. And just to be clear, I know that we got that community email, but there's been lots of other points of feedback from the community as well. So doing a fist of 5, could we, the proposal on the table is to find a multilingual ed tech who works in a middle school. That's the profile of this person that I'm hearing. So fist of 5, 5 being in support of finding that person, fist being against. Okay, thank you, Emily. Okay, great. Then that is what I will do. I'll work with the board to get amended resolution. Thank you, Emily, for that language. And then we'll send that to the appointments committee, which is great because Yusuf is already here and he heads the appointments committee. Great. Beautiful. Thank you all. Matthew, was that a Zoom hand for a 5 or was that another comment? Okay, perfect. Beautiful. Oh, good work. All right. I'm going to actually turn it over to Sylvia because I think the other things, if we don't get to them, I can follow up in an email. So Sylvia, I'm going to turn it over to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So today you guys have the agenda. I put together just a quick slide deck for us to go through. Let me see if I can share my screen. I came in right at the welcome. We've discussed the committee makeup, and I think Sarah has her marching orders on what's happening next there. Hopefully you all have the next set of meetings on your calendar. If you don't, I think someone will be sending you a calendar invite to make sure you're holding these dates, and I can send this presentation to you all afterwards in case you haven't noted those. So everything has been mapped out approximately twice a month, although this month we're meeting 3 times. Since we did not meet our second meeting in January. So we have 3 meetings in February. And then going forward, we have our meetings twice a month. I'm hopeful that we might not need our June meetings, but we shall see as the process unfolds. So I wanted to definitely take a moment to review our shared purpose. Want to always ground us in the conversation that we started. Would someone read our shared purpose and our shared goal for the group?
I can do the goal if somebody does the purpose. So the goal is to recruit, screen, and select the next transformative superintendent of the Portland Public Schools. Go for it, Minar.
Our purpose is to lead a transparent superintendent search process guided by an equitable input of the Portland community while centering on Portland Public Schools' historically marginalized students, families, and staff, and designed to mitigate bias every step of the way.
Thank you. And we shared this at the beginning of all of our community gatherings this week so that the people who attended and the people who will attend tomorrow know that this is what is going to guide us and ground the work of this advisory committee as well as the board. And Sarah, if you could help me, if someone raises their hand, can you help me monitor that? Thank you. Also, since we hadn't met for a while, definitely wanted to come back to the roles of the board and of the search committee. And as Carrie noted, like we had talked a little bit about the roles for each, and just want to make sure that everyone remembers that this committee is really informing the selection process. You are advising on community engagement, making sure that we're identifying stakeholders and supporting the outreach for this work. We'll hopefully next week be reviewing the draft job profile. It's going to be a quick turnaround to synthesize all the thoughts from our meetings this week, but that is the goal. You will be involved in brainstorming the interview activities and the selection panels. You will also serve as a panel during the interview process and also at the finalist stage. We recommend that you have a meeting with the board before the board has their final deliberation. And of course, we're meeting twice a month. All right. This is the high-level timeline that we're working on. We are right at the end of January, beginning of February. Our goal, as I mentioned, is to really have a quick turnaround on our community engagement and confirm the job profile and get that posted so that we spend the rest of February to early March with the screening and selection process. At a more detailed level, our next meeting will be spent confirming the job profile. I anticipate that our second February meeting we'll really be thinking through the steps of the screening and selection process. I believe the early March meeting should be the perfect time for us to do the anti-bias training as a committee and then really design and brainstorm potential interview questions and activities. And then as we get into March and April, we'll really be getting into the steps of the screening process and hopefully finalist interview round by April. So quickly, we had 3 Alma team members on site for Monday and Tuesday of this week. Just want to give a big thank you to Grace and her team for all of the support that they provided in scheduling meetings with people, getting us set up in rooms at the central office so that folks could come to meet with us. And then also Sarah for shuttling us around to get us to the high schools to meet with students. And then numerous people who supported with facilitation and note-taking in our community gathering. So shout out to the team for making things go really, really smoothly. I want to say, I haven't gone through all of the notes yet, but just want to talk at a high level about some of the things that we heard that really stood out as strengths for Portland Public Schools. Many people really talked about the focus on equity and the diversity of the community as a real strength and asset for Portland Public Schools and the Portland community. We also heard a lot about, the foundations of the work that have been developed through the Portland Promise and the evidence of buy-in that folks see in the work that the district is doing. The things that were areas of improvement were around strengthening the operations, systems, and processes, as well as really deepening the work of the Portland Promise. So how do you get to the implementation, get to the levels of implementation and begin to see the results from the high-level goals that are outlined in the plan? So I would say those were some of the big themes that resonated with our team this week, but we are obviously going to spend the next few days going through all of the notes in order to really draft the job description. I did want to point out that the survey has been open now for more than a week, and we, as of this morning, had 611 responses. You will see on the next slide that the majority of responses are from parents and family, as well as Portland residents. And keep in mind that people are allowed, as Nicolette indicated, we are not a monolith. People serve in multiple categories. So these numbers don't add up to 611 per se, because people get to check, all of their ways that they're affiliated with the district. So for us, it was really important that we get more student participation. I think this morning it was it 21 students had completed the survey? I think that's an area where we need to double down on. You can see ed techs, base, those are still pretty low. Teachers, I think, could be a little bit higher. And then just wanted to share the breakdown of completers by race, ethnicity as well. So I think there's good representation on the completers. It could be better, of course. I think the decision that we need to make today as a committee is the survey is scheduled to close on Friday. And we should decide whether or not we want to leave it open, how we can, as a committee, push this out to using our own social media, whatever platforms we have. So I'm going to pause there and want to hear from you all. How do you think this tracks with your expectations, and what are some ways that we can make sure that we have as much input as possible to inform the job description? Alyssa?
If we do decide to extend the survey, are we able to give people some very basic information about what representation has been like so far in doing that? Like saying we're, extending this and we're seeing that like these particular groups are not represented well yet, and really hoping that those people can address the survey?
So we wouldn't necessarily share who's completed as yet. I think we would use our various avenues to make sure that the survey gets pushed out to groups that we know we're missing. So for example, are the principals able to give time in advisory for students to complete the survey? Should we do a robocall from the district office to get parents to commit to use the survey? Are there community partners who are connected to families that are not represented here that could also support?
Great.
That's typically what we would do. We would not share preliminary data at this point. But if 611 is, how does this track with other things that you all would do? And does this feel like we've done our best to get as much participation as possible? Betsy, were you coming off? Yeah.
Yeah. I would really look, I've been working with the Spanish speakers, for a while now, and I'm looking at this, and it might seem like a little number to you, but this is huge for my community. And I think for me, and I know multilingual, I think we could definitely push this out more. And I think it's worth, because I saw even the amount of people I got, we got to attend on Monday, and that was all because of, I know this parent, I know that parent. And so I would appreciate, keeping it open, to get more multilingual participation and to be honest, that survey is hard. So even me, I was challenged with it. It even took me I can read and write English well, but it took time. So even the ones I think I gave, hopefully they got in your hands. I had given Grace 10 that I managed to do by hand. So I think that they're time.
We haven't received those yet. I think she's going to mail them to Nita on our team at the end of the week. If there's any more paper versions coming out.
Yeah, you'll have more paper versions. So I do think for our multilingual families, that survey does require assistance, not for all, but for some.
Yeah.
And it takes time. So I would appreciate keeping it open for a bit to get more response on that.
Yeah, I think the demographic breakdown is really strong. I think the representation from students, teachers, ed techs, other employees feels pretty low. I would probably expect more from community partners as well.
Sylvia, can you talk about the impact in the creation of the job profile timeline if we keep this open longer?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tight turnaround for us. I think we're scheduled to meet on Tuesday with the board, and then we'll have the 8th to turn that around. If we were even to leave it open until Sunday or Monday morning, maybe you do a Sunday night push, and we can get, just a few more people to do it. I think our team could pretty quickly turn something around if we were to close it on Monday. But the survey, is really helpful in honing in the way the questions are asked and honing in on what's really rising to the top of importance for people in the role of the superintendent. Niolette?
Thank you. I think that it would be, I really like Monday as a little push for giving people more access. I know that it'll give y'all, or it'll be a little bit more work for y'all, but I think it could be worth it. The other thing I would say along the lines of Alyssa's point is we could, instead of specifically having that language of like these specific demographics, I'm wondering if there could just be like maybe a little infographic, like a social media infographic that could be created that says, we want to encourage, students and multilingual, or like students, teachers, and multilingual communities to use this time to think about filling out the survey, because they're usually disadvantaged in this race, or they're usually not heavily advertised to. So I'm wondering if there's opportunity for something like that, just like a little, I don't know, like get out there and fill out the survey that we could all share. It's just easier for people to like reshare like a post versus like going out and doing more outreach personally.
Yeah. I can also talk to Grace to see if there's a newer, different graphic that we could all share. There is also a community newsletter that goes out this weekend, so we could boost it in there again. I
don't know who on this group are active social media users, who has a big followership, that is involved in Portland school work.
Yeah,
to the extent that this is the group that has the influence with the community and is engaged with folks, we really need to lean into pushing this to our own networks.
Yeah, I can definitely do that and have capacity to do that. It's hard for me to create like a resource or like a easily exposed.
Yeah, you want to reshare.
Info. Yeah, I'm a resharer, that's for sure.
Yes, yes.
Great. Manar?
Yeah, I totally agree that we should keep the survey open for longer. And I also think I could help boost up the numbers of student and teacher responses, because I'm in student government and I could talk to, our student government facilitator got promoted to be our co-principal now. So I could talk with her, and I could also talk to Miss Noor, who's our other co-principal, and I could really get more people to fill out the survey.
Thank you.
So it sounds like keeping it open until Monday is where we're landing.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Any other questions about what has happened this week? We still have one virtual session tomorrow. We have over 80 people registered, so hopefully they will show up, which is great. We are able to do small breakout groups via Zoom, and it usually works really well. So I think we're keeping the registration open through, is it noon tomorrow? So again, if people did not get the opportunity to attend an in-person session, we would love to have time with them tomorrow. Any other questions about the community engagement that's happened so far? Any feedback, anything that you've heard that you want to share with for the good of the order?
I would just share that it did feel like the turnout was very good both nights. And, the first night, especially, we just had a ton of multilingual families, so many that we had to find a new room. And the energy was just really lovely. There was lots of delicious food and childcare. And so while this was focused on, the superintendent search, it also just felt like a community building event. So just grateful for that. And just, all the people that you were able to see during the day, it has felt like this week you've already been with hundreds of people from our community. And so that feels really powerful.
Yeah, we have done the community gatherings in a hybrid format. And my initial reflection is when we offer hybrid, more people stay home than if you separate them. So it was really a strong turnout, a very strong turnout compared to some of our earlier searches, either virtual or in the hybrid format. So it was great. Carrie?
Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. I wanted to chime in. I came to the community event on Monday at East End, and I want to piggyback on what Sarah said. It seemed like just a really warm and welcoming community event. And then when we broke out into, I guess, response groups or circles to respond to the questions, I was really amazed, and it made my heart really happy to see people who had very different opinions, but sort of openly saying that they were there to respect that not everybody feels the same way, and that they were there to listen as well as share their own opinions. So it just went really, really well. And I understand there's multiple different groups, so that might not be true for everyone's experience, but my experience was that. So thank you for that.
Great.
Wonderful.
So we'll keep the survey open. So one of the things we wanted to do, because we know that we've met with some of you individually, we wanted to use the rest of our time together to do our own search committee focus group. So sometimes it opens up new ideas when you are in community with other people. So we're going to just pause for a second, and we're going to go through the focus group protocol as a search committee. So let me get my notes up. And I'm going to put the questions in the chat. All right. So for this group, want to have a discussion with you to hear directly from you. First question, what do you love most about Portland Public Schools that will be important for the next superintendent to champion and protect?
Sylvia, do you think it would be helpful for people to use their Zoom hands and then you'll call on folks, or do you just want people to come off mute?
Was I talking and I was on mute? Was I on mute? Oh, okay. Sorry. I was like, well, how did I get on mute? I think if folks just want to come off mute, I'll start taking notes. As you think of what you love most about Portland Public Schools. Okay.
I will go. Go ahead,
Matthew. Go ahead. No, you go, please.
We both, got the courage at the same time. I will say one of the reasons that we decided to raise our family in Portland was the diversity of Portland being unique from any other school district in the state, really. And that's been true. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And it's something that Portland should cherish and embrace and continue to build in positive ways and support students across all those diverse, both social as well as economic strata that sort of exists here in Portland. It's unique to Maine, and we should champion that and really embrace it.
Thank you.
So I was thinking along the same ways as Matthew. That was one of the things that I really love about the district. It's surprising, when you think of Maine, you don't think that we would have this wonderfully rich and diverse district, but we do. So to me is exactly that, is, growing that and, growing that and the Portland Promise, continuing that work of the Portland Promise to me is very important because it does tie a lot of that equity work in there. So yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll just jump in and say that for all the places I've worked throughout my career, that the people are really special in Portland schools. And we have so many people who have a ton of longevity. You know, people do not come and go here. People come and stay, and are really committed to the district and, you know, loyal to the mission. And it's really special, I think.
Thanks, Barb.
I think I would share all the sentiments of everybody who already spoke, but I also am really struck by how committed Portland Public Schools is to listening to students. And I really appreciate that and can think of lots of examples where people have had their assumptions challenged by the perspectives of students and have decided to dig in deeper and get more information and come to a better understanding. And I really appreciate that.
As we typically share in the focus groups and interviews, like, these are the things we're going to be talking to candidates about. So we want to have these good points to share before we get into the work that needs to be done. Anything else for the next person to champion and protect? Carrie?
Yeah, sure. I actually, response. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My response actually evolved over going to some of these different sessions, right? Mm-hmm. So where I've come to is, what do I love most? I feel like collectively the community is extremely invested in figuring out how to do better. Collectively find the places where we share the same visions and the same values so that we can figure out the next path to do better for students. I felt that came to me stronger than ever in the last couple of weeks.
Thank you. The next question is where many people like to spend a lot of time. So what do you see as the top 2 to 3 areas of improvement for Portland Public Schools that the next superintendent will need to lead the district through during the next 3 to 5 years?
I'll start.
Betsy? Mm-hmm.
I think one really big area would be retention of BIPOC staff. You know, we don't do a good job at keeping that staff, and that's really important, at least I think, for students, to have staff that's representative of our student body. So I think that's really an important focus. And I think is going to be a lot of work in just bringing the district together. So I think it's going to require a lot of work, and I think we're kind of broken. We're kind of a little shattered. So I think that is an area we definitely need to work on and improve, is unifying and getting everybody kind of back together again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo both of those things that Betsy mentioned. In addition, like recruitment and hiring of additional BIPOC staff. So not just retaining them, but continuing to build a racially diverse workforce that mirrors our student body.
Manar? And then Nyla?
Already somewhat repeating what Betsy and Sarah said, but I really do think that it's important to have a BIPOC staff, because as a student, I could tell you that's very impactful when you see a teacher that represents you or looks even similar to you. It really does impact you, and it makes you want to learn more, and it makes you want to connect with the material even more. So I think that's very important.
Thank you. Nyla?
I feel like I'm forgetting. I think definitely retaining Black and brown staff But I think for me, it's just like really honestly addressing race as a social like structure, as a construct, as a social issue, as something that is both macro, micro, as something that is both in the community and within the community. So just not like sorry, there was something that Betsy said that I wanted to speak on, or that like I wanted to reflect on, but it was like just the concept of like these issues are not necessarily new. They've always been brewing. Like the interior core of some of our issues have always been continuous. So really settling down and really getting to the core of some of those issues, which I feel is lack of recognizing just how deep racism can play out within our schools system. Creating safe space. So without addressing that racism, is going to be hard for Black staff to be able to stay within that district, or or for us to retain those type of folks. So that's one thing. And then I think for me, it's also more. Oh my gosh, I'm like blanking on some things. Definitely that I think more opportunity for professional development that's ongoing, that can support teachers that feel like they aren't necessarily wholly understanding their students. So just continuous professional development.
Yeah.
I would add what everybody said about community reach out. So specifically immigrant and BIPOC community members and families who are, we have seen in COVID how disconnected they are and how it's hard to reach them out. And so I would like the coming superintendent to find out maybe a different creative way to break that obstacle and reach them, and make sure that the board engagement and public comment and all of that is indication of how absent they are on the table of making decisions, and they're not giving the feedback that they have. So I would like the superintendent to find a way and invest in making sure that their voice is heard.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank
I would
you.
agree with you, Seth. And just to add to that, I just on a broader level, just communication in general, and just getting really frequent, clear, and transparent communication through any kind of vehicles that we could use that we're not using now, just to make sure that everybody is getting messages that needs to hear them.
And Barb, are you speaking district to families, schools to families, districts to staff? Where do you see all of it?
I mean, I do see all of it. What I heard on Monday, some of the things I heard, it just makes me realize that things we think we're communicating, people are not getting. And, some of that requires people to actively go to seek versus receive. And people often don't read things. And so just trying to get more creative in how we're putting things out there, to whether it is on social media or however, to get messages out to draw people in to get the information.
Mm-hmm. All right. I know you all have more ideas.
I've got some. I just don't want to step on anybody else. Is anybody else waiting? Oh, okay. I'll share three things. Top two or three things. Okay. I'm going to go back to something others have said. I feel in this moment, a person who is a good unifier would be a a huge, to me, that's sort of the quality that I'm looking at sort of as primary right now. I also have felt this way for a long time and have heard a lot of intel around this. A more support and coaching for new teachers across the board in terms of retention. There are so many different challenges that new teachers in the district are experiencing, and that might be from teaching somewhere abroad, and now they're teaching in the US, and the transition is really so systemically different. Or just how to, engage with parents and kids, just all kinds of things that naturally come up for new people who are either new to the profession or new to the profession here. I've always thought that just more support around from coaches, whoever they may be, that can really get in and embed and would make a big difference in retention. And the other thing that's come to me a lot is addressing special ed services in the district. I don't know if that's come to any of you in those sessions, but feeling like that needs to be addressed. So.
Quickly, I had heard the most from the group of special ed teachers that I was able to meet with on Tuesday afternoon. It did not come up as much as I would have expected in a district this size. So thank you for sharing that, Carrie.
Could I just add to what Carrie said?
Absolutely.
I absolutely echo what everyone has said so far. I think specifically to what Carrie said, though, that I do think that we have some work to do as we think about our equity goals to make sure that clear support for students with disabilities is really embedded in that work. Because I think that there's definitely room for growth within our district for that. And I also think that there is need for improvement in terms of overall operations. And that's something that I would like to see us find somebody who has clear experience with and capacity for.
Thank you.
I'll just add a sort of layer on top of what others have shared. Specifically, had thoughts about the operational piece as well, about looking at some restructuring potentially of sort of the district's org chart, if you will. I'd taken a look at that a couple months ago and sort of had some questions about it myself, but it leads to the overall thinking that that a new superintendent obviously is coming into an environment that's fresh to him, but there is a lot of existing layers to the onion, if you will, and that individual needs to have a skill set to be able to identify strengths and weaknesses within that leadership team, because what I'm hearing from people is those are things that need to be accomplished, but one person can't accomplish that themselves, in the sense that they need to be able to build strong leaders within the leadership that's here, cultivate and really strengthen the traits and the skills that people possess, and find ways to really groom that so that those people can carry those messages downstream, if you will, and carry that support downstream. So an individual that can really harness talent is going to be, I think, critical in my view, and somebody that's obviously a strategic thinker, but also somebody that can put together an operational plan, as was just mentioned, somebody that can really implement an operational plan that gets to the root of some of these systemic issues that aren't any one single person's responsibility, but obviously it comes to the top. And but that individual sort of needs to lead by putting people in the positions where they can best help Portland schools succeed.
Thank you. Matthew, you kind of, Nyalette?
Oh, Anna, I was just going to echo what he said, and a lot of what he said, but also, somebody that's able to create, positions so that work is divided, so things aren't, heavily stacked onto one person as a responsibility, somebody that's transformative and can really transform where the district is and kind of see the pathways to where they need to go and how to get there. And just creating, like a reliable group that is also that I guess, feels supported and has, a leadership team that feels supported and doesn't feel so stretched thin that they're having to burn out so easily.
Thank you. That is a perfect segue into the responsibilities of the superintendent. So as we think about the job profile, we think about it as what the person is responsible for, what they should be doing versus the how they do it. So Matthew and Niolette were really talking about some of those responsibilities, building a strong team, setting the vision, setting the strategy, creating the operational plan to execute on the strategy. What else do you all see as the most important responsibilities for the superintendent in the 80 hours a week that they have to spend on this job? We know it's a lot, both the internal operations as well as the external facing work. So what are some of your ideas?
And Sylvia, we're coming up on time for the meeting too.
Is it 7:30 or 8:30? Okay, got it.
I'd really like a superintendent who can help us develop a really wonderful narrative about our district. And, I think the Portland Promise has done an awesome job foundationally. But just like continuing to build a really strong narrative within the community and New England, frankly, because I think we are at the cutting edge of a lot of things, but how we're telling that story in the community, I think can be developed.
Are you saying you want to be like a role model for the state and New England and the region, or
less
do you want to be more public facing?
Less about being a role model, but just more like, I think it comes to communications and branding and like the ways that we are using media and just like how we're telling the story of who we are. And I think that also comes back to the equity piece. Like, how are we talking about this rich, diverse community that is just like so full of strengths and assets? Like, how are we talking about that in a community?
I love that.
I will add, an important responsibility is not only being able to listen, but to formulate a strategy based on what that individual is hearing and making sure that they understand what they're hearing so that they can help start to sort of leverage the strengths that are here, identify the weaknesses, and learn how to build up those weaknesses while continuing to really push forward the strengths, not necessarily to push them to the back burner, but it's, you mentioned 80 hours a week, realistically, it probably is that. I equate it to being the guy that used to be on the Tonight Show in the 80s that would spin all the plates on the little pointer there and keep them all spinning. And that's, almost the job of a superintendent is you've got to be responsible for so many things, jack of all trades, master of none, mile wide, yard deep, however you want, whatever phrase you want to use. I think it becomes sort of important in that role. But then sort of thinking more globally, as Sarah was pointing out, Portland has become a unique city over the last 5-10 years that's attracted a lot of great people and great things to it, and people that fled here from larger cities during the pandemic, or I think of the Rue Institute as a specific element of that. Leveraging a relationship was a place like the Rue Institute would be, amazing. So I think, adding another spinning plate is somebody that can identify these partnerships that are here within the city that could be built upon to the strategic benefit of Portland Public Schools.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Manar, you might get the closing comment as we figure out how to wrap up.
I was going to say that I agree with everyone and that we should have a superintendent who's responsible for promoting the district's vision and goals while also helping us improve them and seeing where we could get better at certain things. Like, for example, how we can improve our education system and like our curriculum so that all students can succeed, not just a few.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was the great closing comment. We will have some time to wrestle with this a little bit more once we synthesize the feedback from the interviews, focus groups, and community gatherings, as well as from the survey. It'll give you the words that we will wrestle with next week. As we wrap up, as our team thinks about what's coming next, for us is really to review all of the feedback from the meetings, focus groups, interviews, surveys. We will be building the job profile. As you all start to think about, where we will be moving then to quickly posting the job once we all agree that it really reflects your voice and the voice of the board and the voice of the community, and really tells the story of what this role is at this point in time. Then we want to begin sourcing and recruiting. So if folks are already coming out of the woodwork saying, I'm interested, definitely the Alma team is already cultivating a list. If folks are coming to you, feel free to send those to anyone on our team. And you have our email address. So any closing comments, Sarah?
I just had two quick things, which is, I know I mentioned in my email about moving these to totally virtual calls moving forward. Does anybody have a strong opposition to that? No? Okay, then I would like to do that. I think it's easier to see everybody and sometimes easier for people to do it when they don't have to travel back and forth. And then the other thing—
Is that all meetings or just February? Is that all of the meetings? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, unless we need to call an in-person meeting for some reason, and then we can definitely pivot to that for sure. And then the other thing I wanted to just bring up to see if anybody is interested in, Emily stepped down from co-chairing this committee, and that is another role that if anyone is interested in co-chairing with me, please reach out to me, and we can kind of go from there. If there's a lot of interest, we can figure out a process. If only one person is interested, we can move forward. But kind of with all the other moving pieces, I just hadn't had capacity to kind of get to that point yet. But that is very much on the table. So if you're interested in that, reach out. Please let me know.
Alyssa's interested. You came off mute. I thought you were going to volunteer.
No, I didn't mean to come off mute. Sorry.
Oh.
Well, thank you all for an awesome process as usual. I really, really appreciate it. I've already sent Grace an email to get an updated graphic. When I have that, I'll send that out to folks. So if you can share it to social media. Also, if you know teachers and can ask them to share the survey in their classes, that would be awesome. Manar, we're looking at you also for helping with the student numbers. I will send that out as well. But if in the meantime, if you have any questions about anything, please reach out. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thank you.